There was a time when our Earth existed without a single human. Imagine that for a moment. No voices, no footsteps, not one name ever spoken across the vast, empty landscapes. The only sound was the wind, sweeping through endless forests, and the waves, lapping against rocky shores with a patience as old as time itself. It was a world unseen by our eyes, unheard by our ears, yet it was strangely, profoundly complete. Go ahead, try closing your eyes. Picture it. There are no cities painting the night sky with artificial light, no smoke curling up from chimneys. In this world, there is no history, no memory, no anxiety about what tomorrow might bring. The Earth back then was unhurried, uncrowded. It breathed with a slow, steady rhythm, like a giant being in a deep, peaceful sleep. Life flourished in a silent symphony, a planet that didn't need us to be whole. The forests were like great green oceans, stretching from one horizon to the other. The actual oceans, vast and deep, reflected the light of the sun and moon like living mirrors. The ground would tremble ever so gently under the weight of colossal creatures. But there was no fear, only a natural order. Everything existed in its proper place, a perfect, intricate dance of life and landscape. No one tried to conquer, no one destroyed, and no one ever stopped to question why they were here. It was all just being. And if we humans could somehow stand there, just for a moment, on that ancient shore, perhaps we would feel an overwhelming sense of how small we truly are. We would witness a planet functioning with absolute perfection, entirely without us. A world without conflict, without ambition, without deadlines. There was only life in its purest, wildest form. It's a humbling thought, isn't it? To see a world that has no need for a single thing we've created. But in that very piece, a tragedy was being silently written. There was no warning, no sign that could be read or understood. While the Earth slept its deep, unbothered sleep, the fate of an entire era began its final countdown. It was a slow, creeping doom approaching from beyond the sky, a cosmic event that no living thing could possibly anticipate. And no creature on this planet, from the smallest insect to the largest dinosaur, knew that they were living in the final, fleeting moments of their world. Every sunrise they greeted, every meal they found, every breath they took was one step closer to an ending they would never see coming. They were the inhabitants of a lost world, blissfully unaware that their time was about to run out, that their reign was about to be erased from the book of life, leaving behind only whispers in stone. Thank you for watching. If you found yourself lost in this journey to the past, consider subscribing for more stories about our incredible planet. 66 million years ago, Earth wasn't just alive. It was incredibly vibrant. Imagine a world that was young, warm, and brimming with energy. There were no long, icy winters to endure. No silent, frozen polar ice caps locking away the water. The global climate was gentle and remarkably stable, as if the planet itself had never known a moment of suffering. It was a world bathed in a perpetual, gentle warmth, a global paradise. Endless, lush forests stretched across every continent, from pole to pole. Picture ferns taller than a grown man, their giant leaves spread wide to welcome the sunlight like arms open to embrace life itself. Towering conifers stood like silent sentinels, their needles whispering stories of the seasons as they witnessed the slow, unhurried passage of time. In this world, life felt no need to rush. Each day was like a long, deep, satisfying breath taken by the planet. The air was different, too. It was richer in oxygen, filled with the sense of damp earth, blooming flowers we've never seen, and the fresh aroma of pine. The sounds were a symphony of life, the calls of strange birds, the buzzing of insects, and the distant, heavy footsteps of creatures that ruled this world. It was a constant hum of vitality, a planet singing its own song. The oceans of that time were a breathtaking sight, okay? They were a brilliant, deep blue and wonderfully warm. Sunlight pierced the surface, scattering into shimmering, dancing streaks of light, making it seem as if the sea itself had a soul. gentle, slow-moving currents, acted like global arteries carrying warmth and nutrients to every corner of the ocean, nourishing countless forms of life that we, today, can only glimpse through the silent stories told by fossils and the power of our own imagination. Massive marine reptiles, like the mosasaurs, glided through the depths, while plesiosaurs with their long necks sunted in the sunlit upper waters. The reefs weren't made of the corals we know today, but were bustling cities built by different creatures, teeming with ammonites in their beautiful spiral shells and a kaleidoscope of ancient fish. It was an underwater world of unimaginable richness and scale, a world completely alien, yet so full of life. If one of us could somehow step back into that world, I believe the first feeling wouldn't be fear, would be pure, unadulterated astonishment. You would be standing on a planet that was whole, undivided by the borders and lines we've drawn on our maps. There would be no trace of human domination, no scars left on the landscape by greed or conflict. Everything existed in a delicate, intricate harmony, like a beautiful, ancient melody that had been playing continuously for millions upon millions of years, without ever losing its perfect, graceful rhythm. The planet back then was like a paradise without guardians, a garden without a gardener. It was a common home for all life, a world where every single creature belonged, had its own niche, its own purpose, and was born to live out its full natural life cycle. From the smallest insect to the largest dinosaur, each being was an integral part of this magnificent global tapestry. And none of them, not a single living soul on that perfect, vibrant, beautiful planet, could have ever known the truth. They couldn't have known that this perfect beauty, this incredible world teeming with life, was standing right on the precipice, terrifyingly close to its sudden and catastrophic end. The final moments of an entire era were ticking away, completely unnoticed. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this journey back in time, please consider subscribing for more stories about our amazing planet. Imagine a world long before our time, a planet not ruled by one, but by many. Ancient Earth was a grand symphony, a masterpiece of coexistence where land, sky, and sea each had their own kings and queens. It wasn't a reign of cruelty, but one of perfect, absolute adaptation. Picture vast, sun-drenched plains, herds of gentle giants. The herbivorous dinosaurs move like a slow, deliberate river of life. The mighty Triceratops, with its 3 iconic horns and formidable frill, strides with a heavy, steady gait. Each footstep is a drumbeat marking the passage of geologic time. Nearby, the Ankylosaurus, a living fortress covered in thick, bony armor and wielding a club-like tail, advances in silent confidence. They knew no fear, for the world had grown accustomed to their monumental presence over millions upon millions of years. Their existence wasn't just a fact, was a fundamental law of this ancient land. Venturing deeper into the dense primordial forests, a different kind of life pulsed in the shadows. Here, predators were the masters of patience. They lurked amongst giant ferns and towering cycads, waiting, not with malice, but with an instinct honed over generations. There was no panic, no wasted energy, just a profound understanding of the hunt. Life here was not a story of pity, but a raw and honest narrative written by the laws of nature. The strong survived, the weak found new ways to adapt, and every single creature, from the smallest insect to the largest carnivore, played an indispensable role in this endless, beautiful cycle of life and death. Now, lift your gaze to the heavens. The skies belong to a different dynasty of rulers. Majestic flying creatures, the pterosaurs, commanded the air. With wingspans that could rival a small airplane, they glided on thermal currents, like giant, leathery sails catching the prehistoric wind. When they soared overhead, their immense shadows would sweep across the ground, a fleeting eclipse, a stark reminder that the sky, too, had a master. The sound of the wind whistling through their powerful wings was not just noise. It was the very breath of the planet, a deep, resonant sigh from a world teeming with magnificent life. These weren't monsters from a forgotten nightmare. They were the architects of their era, perfectly sculpted by evolution to thrive in their specific domains. The ocean had its own titans, like the colossal mosasaurs, an apex predator that ruled the depths with unmatched power. The sheer diversity was staggering. Each niche was filled. Every ecosystem was a complex, interlocking puzzle of predator and prey, of grazer and plant, all moving in a delicate yet powerful dance. It's a humbling thought, isn't it? To realize that our planet once hosted such a spectacular array of life, a world where every corner was a kingdom unto itself. This incredible balance, this intricate web of life, persisted for an almost unimaginable length of time. The reign of the dinosaurs spanned over 150 million years. To put that into perspective, modern humans have only been around for a tiny fraction of that. They witnessed continents drift, climates change, and countless sunrises over a world that was wild, untamed, and utterly their own. Their story is not just one of extinction, but a powerful testament to the resilience and adaptability of life itself. It's a legacy written in stone, in fossils that whisper tales of a lost world. A grand symphony that played out long before we ever took the stage. Thank you for joining me on this journey back in time. If you were captivated by this glimpse into our planet's ancient past, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more adventures into the world that was. Until next time, stay curious. In the cold, silent expanse of space, far beyond the blue and green sphere we call Earth, something stirred. It wasn't life, not as we know it. It was a fragment of creation, a wanderer of the cosmic ocean. A colossal rock, born from the chaos of a stellar nursery billions of years ago. For eons, it had drifted aimlessly, a silent witness to the birth and death of stars, a lonely traveler on a journey with no destination. Its surface was a testament to its long voyage. Scarred with craters from countless smaller collisions, each impact a memory etched in stone. It carried within its core the ancient dust of the universe, a cocktail of ice, metal, and minerals, a time capsule from the dawn of the solar system. This celestial nomad was locked in a gravitational dance with giants, its path nudged and pulled by the immense forces of planets like Jupiter and Saturn. Each gravitational tug was a subtle course correction, a tiny shift in its cosmic trajectory. For millions upon millions of years, these gentle nudges accumulated, slowly altering its orbit, guiding it away from the outer darkness and steering it toward the inner solar system. It was a game of cosmic billiards played over an unimaginable timescale. And this wanderer was the cue ball, set on a collision course it could not escape. It was pure physics, a sequence of events set in motion long before the first dinosaur ever walked the Earth. As it drew closer to the sun, its pace quickened. The sun's warmth began to touch its frozen surface, awakening the ancient ices trapped within. Sublimating gases erupted from its core, creating a magnificent, ethereal tail that stretched for thousands of miles behind it. This glowing shroud, a halo of dust and vapor, made it a spectacle, a temporary star blazing its own path across the void. It passed by Mars, a silent red observer, its velocity increasing with every passing moment. The pull of the sun was now undeniable, a powerful force reeling it in. The journey was no longer a gentle drift. It was a plummet, a headlong dive toward the inner planets. Down on Earth, life continued, oblivious. The Tyrannosaurus Rex, the unchallenged king, patrolled its domain. Its senses attuned to the rustle of leaves and the scent of prey, not the silent threat descending from the heavens. The ecosystem hummed with the rhythm of survival, a complex web of life and death playing out under the warm Cretaceous sun. The air was thick with the sounds of the ancient world, the cries of pterosaurs, the hum of insects. The heavy footfalls of giants. The world was vibrant, stable, and completely unaware that its destiny was being written in the sky above. The planet's fate was now tied to this incoming visitor. The final leg of the journey began. The rock, now a full-blown comet or asteroid, screamed through the inner solar system. It was now on a direct, unalterable path. The Earth's own gravity reached out, an invisible hand pulling the messenger of doom closer. For the first time in its billions of years of travel, the wanderer had a definite destination. It was no longer just a rock. It was an event, an appointment with destiny. As it breached the final veil of space and prepared to meet the Earth's atmosphere, it carried with it not malice, but the cold, indifferent power of the cosmos. The age of dinosaurs had mere moments left, and the countdown had just begun, marked by a streak of fire about to tear across the prehistoric sky. The journey was over. The impact was next. In a world long past, one name brought a hush over all living things. Not from simple fear, but from the sheer weight of its presence. Tyrannosaurus rex, the absolute apex. It didn't need to prove its dominance. Its very existence was the law of the land. As the Earth spun slowly beneath an ancient blue sky, the T-Rex stood as a monument to power, the undisputed ruler of its time. An entire ecosystem revolved around this one titan, a perfectly balanced world where order was maintained by a single powerful reality. But far away in the silent, lifeless void, a different story was just beginning. A story no one saw, no one recorded, but one that was destined to rewrite everything. In the cold, dark expanse of space, a rock was born from the cataclysmic collision of celestial bodies. It had no name, no consciousness. It was just matter adrift in the vast emptiness. For millions of years, it drifted in the dark. A silent testament to cosmic violence that occurred long before Earth could even dream of complex life. If any human had laid eyes on it, then it would have been dismissed as just another insignificant speck in an endless ocean of stars. But as we know, in the grand theater of the universe, sometimes the quietest, most unassuming things carry the most devastating power. This wasn't just a rock. It was a loaded gun, floating through the cosmos, its trigger waiting for the gentle pull of gravity. And so, the meteorite began its long, aimless journey. It tumbled through dark nebulae, navigated treacherous asteroid belts, and silently slipped past the orbits of giant sleeping planets. It had no pilot, no destination, just the cold, impartial laws of physics guiding its path. With every rotation, with every light year crossed, it was unknowingly inching closer to a fateful rendezvous. Millions of miles away, Earth remained oblivious, a vibrant jewel of life. The dinosaurs continued their reign. The primeval forests stood lush and green, and the oceans pulsed with life. Two separate worlds existing in parallel, completely unaware of the other's existence. It's a bit like our own lives, isn't it? We go about our days thinking everything is normal, never knowing when a life-altering event is silently approaching from just over the horizon. Then it happened. In a single moment, infinitesimally small on the cosmic clock, but eternally significant. The meteorite was captured by Earth's gravitational embrace. Its long, meandering path was over. Its trajectory sharpened, its speed accelerated. The random wandering had ended, and a targeted, fateful journey had begun. It was no longer just a drifting rock. It was an arrow, drawn and aimed at the heart of the Cretaceous world. From that instant, the fate of an entire era was sealed. There was no turning back. The countdown had started, not in days or hours, but in the final, terrifying moments of its descent. The sky was about to fall, and the reign of the dinosaurs was about to come to a spectacular, fiery end. The collision was inevitable, and the world would never be the same. Imagine a world 66 million years ago. A world teeming with life, ruled by giants. But on one fateful day, something changed. Not something you could see, not yet. It was a feeling. A deep primal instinct that resonated through every living cell, an echo of millions of years of survival. Before the cataclysm arrived, before anyone even knew what was coming, the world began to act strangely. The sky, our familiar, comforting blue, seemed to fade. It took on a weird, washed-out hue. The sunlight, once warm and life-giving, felt different, almost harsh, as if filtered through some invisible, distorted lens. The very air grew thick and heavy, and an unnatural silence fell over the land. The gentle whisper of the wind through the trees ceased. The constant rustle of the forest floor went quiet. A profound stillness crept across the face of the planet, like the held breath of a world waiting for an unknown monumental event. Life responded to this silent alarm. The birds, the masters of the sky, stopped soaring. The great pterosaurs, creatures that once painted silhouettes against the clouds, descended from their heights, seeking the safety of the ground, their leathery wings tucking close. On the plains and in the jungles, the animals slowed their pace. Mighty dinosaurs, their heads usually held high, now bowed them low, their senses tuned to a subtle, almost imperceptible tremor running through the earth. Herds of triceratops and hadrosaurs, once constantly on the move, stood frozen in place. There was no panic, not yet, just a deep collective unease. They didn't know what was about to happen, but they knew with a certainty that defied logic that something was profoundly wrong. If we were there as modern humans, we'd probably call this feeling anxiety. That nameless dread, that vague premonition of disaster that makes your heart beat faster for no clear reason. But for the ancient life of the Cretaceous period, it wasn't an emotion. It was a survival signal, a raw, unfiltered message from the planet itself. It was a whisper carried on the silent air, a vibration felt through the soles of their feet, a warning from the earth to all her children. The world seemed to be holding its breath, issuing a final, silent warning that no creature could possibly comprehend. The ground was firm, the trees stood tall, but the peace was gone. It was like the final eerie moments before a colossal storm breaks, when the world goes utterly still and quiet. And in that heavy silence, an unstoppable destiny was hurtling through the blackness of space, drawing nearer and nearer, now just a single breath away from our world. The greatest change in the history of life was about to begin, not with a roar, but with a whisper that only instinct could hear. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this glimpse into the past as fascinating as I do, please consider liking the video and subscribing for more stories from our planet's incredible history. See you next time. 66 million years ago, our planet was a paradise, teeming with life, ruled by magnificent titans. For over 150 million years, dinosaurs roamed the land, soared through the skies, and swam in the oceans. They were the undisputed masters of a vibrant, thriving world. But the universe is vast, and sometimes it delivers an awakening that is both sudden and absolute. High above the Earth, a cosmic wanderer, an asteroid nearly 10 kilometers wide, was on a collision course. It traveled at a speed we can barely fathom, a silent messenger of doom, carrying an energy that would redefine life on our planet forever. Then, the moment arrived. Without warning, with no turning back. The asteroid tore through Earth's final layers of atmosphere, hurtling down at a speed far beyond any limit life had ever known. The sky blazed. But this wasn't the familiar fire of the sun or a volcano. It was a cold white light, so intense it completely obscured the sun in broad daylight. In that single horrifying instant, time seemed to stretch, to warp. If any of us could have stood there, we wouldn't have even had time to feel fear. There would have been only an absolute stark emptiness, a void where thought couldn't form. Before the mind could comprehend what was happening, everything was already beyond comprehension. For the ancient Earth, this wasn't just an event. This was the end of an order, the shattering of a world that had existed for millions upon millions of years. The meteor struck what is now the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico. The impact was cataclysmic. Oceans in the vicinity flash-boiled, turning to vapor in an instant. Solid rock melted like wax, and the very crust of the Earth folded and buckled, shaking so violently it was as if the planet itself were screaming in agony. The energy unleashed surpassed all human imagination. Millions of times more powerful than every nuclear weapon on Earth combined. A blinding light engulfed everything. The boundaries between day and night vanished. A sense of direction became meaningless. Apocalyptic shockwaves traveling faster than sound spread across the planet. They flattened entire forests, leveled mountains, and swept away creatures, erasing their existence and their memories from the face of the Earth. Within a radius of thousands of kilometers, life was extinguished in a flash. There was no escape. There was no refuge. That was the moment Earth was brutally awakened. A single devastating blow from space, delivered with cold, cosmic indifference. And in that brief, terrible moment, the fate of the dinosaurs, the destiny of an entire glorious era, was sealed. The initial impact triggered a chain reaction of global disasters. Mega tsunamis, hundreds of meters high, raced across the oceans, inundating continents. The sky was filled with superheated ash, dust, and vaporized rock, which then rained back down as fiery debris, igniting continent-spanning wildfires. The world was plunged into darkness. A thick, suffocating cloud of soot and aerosols enveloped the planet, blocking out the sun for years, maybe even decades. This was the start of a long, dark winter. Photosynthesis ceased, plants died, and the entire global food chain collapsed from the bottom up. Herbivores starved, and the carnivores that preyed on them soon followed. The world the dinosaurs had known was gone, replaced by an era of ash and darkness. It was a harsh, unforgiving planet, a global graveyard. Yet, even in this apocalyptic aftermath, life in its incredible resilience clung on. In the shadows, small, burrowing creatures, our own mammalian ancestors, survived the long night. They were the inheritors of a broken world, the seeds of a new beginning. The cataclysm that ended the age of reptiles paved the way for the rise of mammals and eventually for us. The story of the Chicxulub impact is a powerful reminder of the fragility of life and the immense impersonal forces that shape our universe. It's a tale of destruction, but also one of incredible resilience and rebirth. The old world vanished, making way for the world we know today. Thank you for watching. If you found this journey back in time fascinating, please hit that like button and subscribe for more stories from our planet's incredible history. You might think the story of the dinosaur killer meteor ended the moment it hit the ground. But that impact wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. The second that blinding light filled the sky, our planet plunged into a state that future life could only describe with one word: hell. First came the shockwave. It wasn't just a powerful gust of wind. It was a wall of unstoppable energy spreading across the globe. Entire forests didn't just bend or break. They were vaporized in a fraction of a second. The very air itself superheated to thousands of degrees, becoming a planet-wide inferno. If any living creature was caught in that initial blast, there would be no time for fear, no time for a single thought. Sensation itself would cease before it could even register. The impact was so violent, it threw colossal chunks of rocks on the size of mountains out of the atmosphere and into space. But they didn't stay there. Gravity pulled them back down, creating a rain of fire across the entire surface of the Earth. The sky we know disappeared, replaced by a scorching crimson dome. Day and night became meaningless, lost in an endless searing glow. Every piece of falling debris ignited new continent-spanning firestorms, one after another, relentlessly turning the world to ash. And what about the oceans? They were no sanctuary. The impact triggered tsunamis of unimaginable scale, waves reaching miles into the sky that surged across the land. They washed over continents, scouring them clean of all life, before pulling back to reveal a barren, lifeless wasteland. The heat from the impact and the falling debris literally boiled the oceans. Seawater evaporated in massive clouds, filling the air with the smell of vaporized rock and sulfur. The countless creatures that had ruled the deep, dark waters for millions of years, were extinguished in an instant, their reign ending in a silent, boiling grave. As if that wasn't enough, the planet itself began to die. The Earth's crust convulsed with non-stop, violent earthquakes, like the frantic, failing heartbeat of a dying world. Across the globe, dormant volcanoes erupted all at once, spewing unimaginable amounts of ash, lava, and toxic gas into an already choked atmosphere. This thick black shroud blocked out the sun, plunging the world into a dark, toxic winter that would last for years. Earth was no longer a vibrant blue marble, a cradle of life. It had become a giant furnace, then a toxic freezer. If humanity has ever tried to picture the apocalypse, this is it. It wasn't a punishment or some divine judgment. It was simply the cold, indifferent laws of physics playing out on a planetary scale. In the midst of this smoldering, shaking hellscape, the ancient life that remained began to understand far too late that the world they had always known, the world they had dominated for eons, was gone forever. It was a reset button for the planet, and in the silence that followed, the stage was set for a completely new story of life to begin. Thanks for watching. If you found this journey into Earth's most violent day fascinating, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more deep dives into our planet's incredible history. See you next time. Imagine a single cataclysmic moment that rewrites the future of an entire planet. 66 million years ago, a colossal asteroid larger than Mount Everest hurtled through space on a collision course with Earth. It struck with the force of billions of atomic bombs, carving a crater over 100 miles wide in what is now the Yucatan Peninsula. The immediate impact was just the beginning of a global catastrophe, a day that would forever be known as the day the dinosaurs died. In the first seconds after impact, the world became unrecognizable. The once green and vibrant planet was engulfed in an unprecedented fury. A wave of intense heat, a thermal pulse, radiated outwards from the impact site at the speed of light. Anything in its path was incinerated in an instant. This wasn't just a fire. It was a planetary oven baking the surface of the Earth. Firestorms erupted across continents, spreading faster than any living thing could escape. It burned not only the ground, but the very air itself. The wind, now a superheated blast, carried searing heat and ash, turning every breath into a punishment for those still clinging to life. As if the fire wasn't enough, the impact had blasted trillions of tons of rock and debris high into the atmosphere, some even reaching space. Now, this material began to fall back to Earth. Tiny shards of rock, heated to a glowing red by atmospheric friction, rained down across the globe like a devastating meteor shower. Each tiny impact was an explosion of heat. Forests that had stood for millennia were reduced to charcoal in mere moments. Vast plains became seas of fire. If any human were to stand amidst this spectacle, perhaps fear would cease to exist. All that would remain is absolute awe before a power far beyond any comprehension, a force of cosmic creation and destruction. Out in the oceans, the nightmare took a different form. The initial impact triggered mega tsunamis of unimaginable scale. These weren't just waves. They were towering walls of water, some reaching heights of over 1,000 feet, racing across the ancient seas. They surged relentlessly towards the coastlines, carrying away rocks, trees, and any living creature in their path, crushing everything with unstoppable force. The sea surged miles inland, as if trying to swallow the planet whole, before retreating, leaving behind a cold, desolate, and deadly emptiness. On this day, nowhere was safe. No natural boundaries mattered. The planet itself was at war with its inhabitants. Above the scorched and flooded lands, the sky itself began to die. The immense volume of ash, soot from the global fires, and pulverized rock thrown into the atmosphere created a thick, impenetrable shroud. The sun, the source of all life, disappeared behind this thick, black veil. Day was no longer day. Night was no longer night. Time itself seemed to have been erased, replaced by a prolonged twilight nightmare that would last for years. The only sounds that remained were the constant shaking of the wounded earth and the mournful howl of the wind as it swept across the burned-out landscapes. It was the sound of a world ending, and in that planetary hell, the creatures that had ruled the earth for over 150 million years were rendered utterly powerless. The dinosaurs, from the mighty Tyrannosaurus rex to the gentle giant sauropods, found their immense size was now a burden. They collapsed amidst the fire, the smoke, and the darkness, not out of weakness, but because the world they knew, the world that had sustained them, no longer had a place for them. Earth, in its terrifying fury, was violently closing a long and spectacular chapter in the history of life, paving the way for a new world to rise from the ashes. This was the Great Dying, a stark reminder of the fragile nature of life and the immense power of the cosmos. Thanks for watching. If you found this journey into Earth's dramatic past fascinating, be sure to subscribe for more. When the great fires finally burned out, the Earth did not find peace. Instead, a new kind of darkness began to fall. It was a quieter darkness, but far more cruel. The sky, once blue, was now choked with a thick blanket of ash and smoke, a funeral shroud for a dying world. For years, sunlight couldn't break through this grim ceiling. Day and night blurred into a single cold gray twilight that just went on and on. Imagine a world without sun. The trees were the first to feel it. Without light for photosynthesis, they starved. The once vibrant forests, teeming with life, became silent graveyards of black, skeletal trunks, reaching up to a sky they could no longer see. As the plants vanished, so did the food for the giant herbivores. The mighty Triceratops, creatures that had roamed the plains in vast herds, were now reduced to wandering ghosts, their massive bodies wasting away with each passing day. The incredible herds that once stretched to the horizon fractured, leaving each dinosaur to face the relentless grip of hunger and cold alone. With the plant eaters gone, the age of the great predators was over. Tyrannosaurus rex, the undisputed king, the apex predator that held the entire ecosystem in a delicate balance, found itself a ruler of an empty kingdom. It stalked silently through the charred, lifeless forests. Its immense power, a force that once inspired terror in every living thing, was now utterly meaningless. There was nothing left to hunt, nothing left to dominate. If we could look back and see that moment, we might recognize a tragedy that feels all too familiar. When power loses its purpose, when strength becomes a useless burden, unable to save even itself. This wasn't a quick end. Extinction didn't arrive like a sudden blow. It crept in slowly, patiently, like a winter that has no end. Global temperatures plummeted. Icy winds howled across the barren, desolate landscapes. The oceans, once bursting with life, fell into a deep, chilling silence. The marine food chain collapsed from the bottom up, and the ancient creatures of the deep vanished into the cold, dark, lifeless water. This wasn't a single catastrophic event, but a slow, agonizing process of attrition. A war of endurance that life was destined to lose. One by one, the dinosaurs disappeared from the face of the earth. It wasn't in a single day or a single year. It was a long, drawn-out decline, a prolonged farewell to an entire epoch. Every final, heavy footstep, every last labored breath, marked the closing of a chapter that had lasted for over 150 million years. Darkness finally consumed the planet, and the world that had once belonged to these magnificent giants fell silent and empty. The Earth itself survived, of course, spun on through the cosmos, but an entire age, a whole world of life, had passed away, never to return. A silent testament to how even the mightiest can be brought down, not by a single strike, but by the slow, inexorable change of the world around them. Thanks for watching. If you found this journey back in time fascinating, do not forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more stories from our Planet SD past. See you next time. When the world of the giants collapsed, the Earth didn't just fall silent. It's a common misconception. Beneath a sky choked with ash, under a relentless gray gloom, life held on. Not with a roar, but with a whisper. It wasn't in the places where sunlight used to reign supreme, but in the dark, forgotten corners of the world. Imagine the planet after the asteroid strike. Everything we associate with the age of dinosaurs gone, but in the damp, cold Earth, something incredible was happening. Tiny creatures were huddling together for warmth and safety. These were our ancestors, primitive mammals no bigger than your hand. They weren't powerful, they certainly weren't dominant. But they were experts at one crucial thing: waiting. They found shelter in caves, deep rock crevices, and the hollowed-out stumps of burnt trees. Every breath was measured, every heartbeat conserved. They survived day by day, moment by moment, driven by the purest, most primal instinct for survival. This wasn't a grand battle. It was a quiet, desperate endurance test. While the world above was a wasteland, the world below was teeming with hidden activity. Insects, the ultimate survivors, continued their endless work in the soft soil, tirelessly searching for any remnant of life, any scrap of nutrition. Certain small reptiles, masters of withstanding the cold, would lie perfectly still for weeks on end, their bodies in a state of suspended animation, waiting for the slightest change in the environment. Amphibians plunged deep into the mud of drying riverbeds, letting the cold water act as a shield for their fragile bodies. It's a powerful image, isn't it? While the entire planet seemed to be in its death throes, these small, seemingly insignificant beings were silently enduring. They were the keepers of a flickering flame in a global winter. If we could travel back in time to that moment, we'd probably overlook them. We'd be searching for signs of the titans we lost. And if we did happen to spot one of these tiny animals, it would be hard to believe that the future of all mammalian life rested in such a small, fragile form. They didn't have the terrifying strength of a T-Rex or the impenetrable armor of an Ankylosaurus. They had none of the spectacular features that made the dinosaurs so legendary. But they possessed a secret weapon, something the giants fundamentally lacked: adaptability. The flexibility to change, to shrink, to hide. The profound wisdom to retreat in order to survive. The giants were built for a world of plenty. These creatures were built for the aftermath. So, in the prolonged darkness that followed the impact, a darkness that may have lasted for years, these small creatures became the living memory of the planet. They were the biological hard drives, carrying the precious data of life forward. Within their DNA, they carried the seeds of a completely new world, even though they were completely unaware of it. They weren't thinking about the future or evolution. They were just trying to survive until the next sunrise, or what passed for it, and that was enough. It's a humbling thought. When the Earth seemed to have lost everything its kings, its climate, its very vibrancy, life didn't give up. In the deepest, darkest, and smallest corners of the globe, it was just being patient, patiently waiting for the day it could once again emerge into the light. Thank you for watching. If you found this journey into the deep past as fascinating as I did, consider subscribing for more stories about our incredible planet. See you next time. For years, the world was held in an embrace of darkness. A thick, suffocating blanket of ash choked the sky, stealing the sun's warmth and light. The Earth was cold, silent, a planet holding its breath. But then, almost imperceptibly, a change began. It wasn't a sudden roar, but a quiet, patient sigh. The revival came slowly, like the first tentative breath after a long, deep sleep. High above, the dense layer of ash began to thin, settling back to the ground. A weak, almost shy beam of sunlight pierced through the gray clouds for the first time in what felt like an eternity. It touched the frozen earth, a gentle promise of warmth that had long been forgotten. And then the rain came. Not a violent storm, but a soft, persistent drizzle. Water seeped into the parched, cracked ground, finding its way into every fissure, every crevice, awakening the seeds that had lain dormant in the endless night. And then, a miracle. Tiny, fragile green sprouts pushed their way through the heavy layer of ash. They were small, almost insignificant, but they reached for the faint light with a stubborn, unwavering resolve. Life was returning one tiny step at a time. This wasn't just a rebirth. It was a testament to endurance. A quiet defiance against the overwhelming void. The world was beginning to breathe again. Soon, a soft green carpet of moss began to cover the once barren rocks. Young, vibrant ferns uncurled their fronds beside the skeletal remains of charred trees. A stark contrast of new life against old devastation. And in the fields that were once a vision of hell, wildflowers began to bloom, painting the gray landscape with splashes of color. If we could stand there in that moment, we might feel something deeply familiar. That profound sense of hope that blossoms after immense loss. The unwavering belief that even when everything seems to collapse, a new beginning is always waiting in the wings. With the return of the plants, the creatures that had survived the long winter began to emerge. Insects, long hidden away, took to the air once more, their buzzing a new and welcome sound. Small birds, their songs faint and hesitant, offered the first notes of a brand new symphony. Timidly, small animals crept from their shelters, their eyes full of caution but also a burgeoning curiosity for this transformed world. The earth was no longer the home they once knew, but it was offering them a new chance, a clean slate. The scars of the past remained. The return of the light didn't erase the memory of the catastrophe. It simply illuminated the path forward. It was a path where life, in all its forms, had to learn how to start over from scratch, to adapt, to rebuild. And in that quiet, resilient dawn, the planet proved a simple yet profound truth. Life can be knocked down, can be pushed to the very brink of extinction, but it will never, ever give up. It finds a way. It always finds a way. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this journey, consider subscribing to see what we explore next. Picture this. 66 million years ago, the sky fell. The age of titans, of earth-shaking footsteps and colossal roars, came to a fiery, abrupt end. From the ashes of that global catastrophe, a new world slowly began to take shape. The giants were gone. In their place, smaller, more agile creatures emerged from the shadows, adapting to an Earth that had been forever changed. This wasn't just an extinction, it was an opportunity. A door had been violently kicked open for a new kind of life. The mammals, who had spent millions of years living in the periphery, hiding in burrows and undergrowth, finally had their moment. They began to spread across the recovering landscapes. They learned to climb higher, dig deeper, and observe the world with keen new eyes. Their brains grew larger and more complex. Their senses sharpened. Life for them was no longer just about survival. It was about making choices, solving problems, and remembering what worked. With each passing generation, intelligence was quietly accumulating. Like a tiny flame carefully sheltered from the wind and rain, waiting for the right moment to grow. Fast forward millions of years. From that same lineage of survivors, a new creature appeared. A creature that wasn't the strongest, nor the fastest, nor the largest. But it possessed something extraordinary. It was capable of complex thought. It could create tools, tell stories, and build communities. It could gaze up at the stars and wonder about its place in the cosmos. That creature was us, humankind. We walk on a planet that has died and been reborn. A planet transformed in just the right way to allow for our existence. Think about it. Without that cataclysmic day the sky fell, without that destructive light that wiped the dinosaurs from the face of the earth, there might have been no space for us. Our entire history, our civilization, our very consciousness is built upon the ruins of a lost world. Every rock beneath our feet, every layer of soil holds the memory of that ancient time. The fossils lying dormant in the earth are more than just old bones. They are a silent testament, a reminder that human life is a legacy paid for with the price of an entire era. When we look back at that distant, violent past, it gives us a profound sense of perspective. It teaches us that our existence isn't a result of sheer power or dominance. We are here not because we are invincible, but because the planet, in its cycle of destruction and creation, gave us a chance. A precious, improbable chance born from what was once the greatest catastrophe in the history of life on Earth. We are the children of that cosmic accident. And that's a story worth remembering. Thank you so much for watching. If this story of our deep past resonated with you, consider subscribing for more journeys into the history of our world. We'll see you in the next one. Have you ever looked at a fossil and felt a sense of finality? A story that ended 66 million years ago with a cataclysmic bang? We're taught that the age of dinosaurs was a closed chapter, a tragic tale of giants who couldn't survive. But what if that's the wrong way to look at it? What if the story of the dinosaurs isn't a story about an ending at all? It's a story about change. The Earth didn't stop. It didn't pause to mourn. Simply, quietly, turn the page to a new chapter. It's a lot like how we, as humans, compartmentalize a painful memory so we can keep on living. The giants were gone, yes, but life itself never surrendered. It did what it always does. It retreated, it learned, it adapted, and then it returned in a completely new form. Think about it. Life became smaller, maybe more fragile, but also infinitely more flexible and resilient. The survivors were not the strongest, but the most adaptable. They hid in the shadows, burrowed underground, and found new ways to thrive in a world that had been fundamentally broken. It reminds me of people who have gone through immense loss. They are never the same, but they often emerge stronger in a way they never were before, forged by hardship. When you walk outside today, you're not just treading on dirt and rock. You're walking on layers of history, on millions of years of survival, collapse, and incredible rebirth. Every single breath you take is a privilege, paid for by countless breaths that were extinguished in the past. Realizing this makes life feel so much more sacred, doesn't it? It connects us to an unbroken chain stretching back eons. This perspective also brings a strange sense of comfort. One day, our own time on this planet might come to an end. Maybe humans will disappear, just as the dinosaurs once did. But that doesn't mean everything ends. The Earth will keep spinning. Life in some form we can't even imagine will find a new path forward. It will adapt and evolve because the greatest law of this planet has never been about sheer strength or dominance. It's always been about the profound ability to transform. Perhaps, when we look back at the story of the dinosaurs, we shouldn't feel a chilling fear of the end. Instead, we should find hope. It's a powerful reminder that no matter how drastically the world changes, no matter how dire things may seem, life always knows how to begin again. It's a testament to the enduring, unstoppable force of existence itself. Thank you so much for watching. If this idea resonated with you, consider subscribing for more thoughts on our amazing world. See you in the next one.